Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about scope, and in particular, global and function scope. Now, scope, it's an important concept in JavaScript, and it refers to the current area or the context of a specific piece of code. And there's certain rules for what we can access in specific scopes. Now, global means just what it sounds like. It means that your global variables are going to be accessible from absolutely anywhere. In fact, the browser has a window object. If I go ahead and type in window in the console, we'll see the window object here that has a ton of methods and properties that we can access from anywhere, whether we're just in our global page scope or if we're in a function or in a block or whatever. In fact, alert, the method alert, is on that window object. If I say window.alert and I pass in here, let's say hello, and I save that and run it, then we're going to see that pop up. Now, since window is the topmost object, it's at the top level, we don't even need to do the window dot. We could just do alert, which is what you'll usually see. Okay, and then there's other things like, for instance, we can do window dot inner width, and that will give us the browser's inner width. So you'll see down here it's logging 455. And again, we don't need window, but in this case, on something like this, on inner width, I would keep the window, but it's really preference. But just to show you, I could do it without it. All right, now we can access these window object properties and methods from anywhere. If I were to create a function and say run, and then run that function, and in here let's just do console log. We'll do window dot, let's say inner height, which is another property. If I do that, it's going to show down here my window height is 136, and it's measuring from here to the console. All right, now as far as creating our own variables in the global scope, that's really what we've been doing. If you're creating a variable that's not in a function or in a block or anything, that's in your global scope. So let's say x equals 100. And obviously, I can access it from the global scope. If I do x, I'm just going to also put a string in here that says, we'll just say in global. Save that, we're going to see 100 and in global. Now, since that's global, I can also access that in functions. So I'll say console log x, and let's say in function, save it, and you can see we can access it there as well. If I have a block like an if statement, which I know we haven't talked about yet, but just to show you real quick, if I say if true, so since I put true, whatever I put in here is going to run. I'll do a console log of x, and I'll say in block. Save that. You can see we're accessing it from there as well. Now, functions have their own scope. So what I'm going to do here is create another function called add. And in here, obviously, we can access x. I already showed you that. We can create variables in our function. So we'll say const y, and we'll set that to 50. And then I'll do a console log of y, and we have to run it. So if I save that and run it, you'll see that we're logging y, which is 50. Now, since I defined this variable inside the function, this is function scoped. Okay, this is not a global variable. If I go outside the function and I try to log y, I'm going to get an error. It says y is not defined because it's looking in the global scope. It's not going to go into this function and pull out variables and allow us to access them. And of course, since I created this variable y in this function, I can't go in this function and do it here either, right? If I do that, now this error is running, you can see at line 11, and that's where I just did this console log. All right, so I'm just going to undo that, and I'll comment this out to get rid of that error. Now, I can access the global variable x inside of any function I want. So if I were to go right here, let's say console log x plus y, and I'm going to get 150. All right, now if I were to, in this add function, create a variable called x, if I do that and save, you're going to see now we get 51. It's adding this x and this y. So what this is doing is overwriting the globally scoped x value. And this is called variable shadowing. Now, when you hear the term local scope, that just refers to whatever scope you're in, whatever you're talking about. If we're talking about, this y variable right here, then our local scope is this add function scope. If we're talking about this one, then where the local scope is the global scope. All right. Now, that is global and function scope. In the next video, even though we haven't gone over like if statements and loops and stuff like that, which are blocks, I think this is a good place to talk about block scope.